important, and what the Berlin School thinks creative leadership is, and why we think it is something that the clients and the creatives need to be thinking about. So, quick notion of what we'll cover today in my, I think, 40 minutes left. A little bit about me, try and give you some ideas about why creative excellence is important at all. You obviously think it's important because you have come to a festival which is celebrating creative excellence. I'd like to talk a little bit about Russia, where it stands in the world market in creativity, and then get into what we think leadership is about at the Berlin School, a little bit of our story, and then some principles of creative leadership. So this is not meant to be me selling the Berlin School. I would like to share some knowledge and ideas about leadership, so I hope that when we are finished, you have some new ideas and things to think about the way you are leading your organization. So a little bit about my story. For those of you who understand English accents, this is not a German accent. I live in Berlin, but I'm an American. I'm originally from Alabama. So if you know Sweet Home Alabama, that's me. Where Alabama puts its little toes into the Gulf of Mexico, that's where I'm from. My first job was as a journalist. I spent 10 years as a journalist. I have a journalism degree. This is the first newspaper I worked for, the last day it published. So this is perhaps a lesson for all of us about how quickly things can change. The first place I ever had a job no longer exists. In America, there are almost no more newspapers published in the afternoon, and the Nashville Banner was one of them. This was the last place I worked before I came to Germany. I became a magazine editor, and the reason this is relevant is I had spent 10 years as a journalist, or if you will, a creative, but no one ever taught me how to lead. And finally I became an editor-in-chief, and I had to understand what this symbol was. In 1997, that's Microsoft Excel. I had no idea how to use Microsoft Excel. I had to make a budget, I had to do our strategy, I had to come up with all of our plans, and I knew what to do creatively, but on the business side, yeah, no idea. I had to kind of go by intuition. And this is actually one of the things that binds many creatives from all of the different industries together, is that often if you are good as a creative director, marketer, television producer, film producer, designer, you rise, but nobody ever teaches you how to lead. And this is the story of the Berlin School. So, final slide on my story. I moved to Germany 16 years ago, started doing media management, consulting, business development and technology. I started my own technology company, a telephone company for the internet, and sold it about 5 years ago, and started my involvement with the Berlin School. So, the important thing to talk about today is creative excellence, but I think for many people, they still wonder why it's important. And I think it's important to say this because maybe, especially the clients, have not heard these things. 5 years ago, the Berlin School, actually, as the Berlin School was being born, we did a study in Germany with McKinsey and the Art Directors Club to try and see if there was any impact of creativity. So the question was, is doing good creative work going to help the business, going to help the client, going to matter? Or is it just something that creatives want to do? They just want to make something fun and funny and lively. So the answer, as you might expect, was pretty dramatic. This was a person did their PhD at McKinsey on this work, and they did a lot of research, and they showed in a pretty conclusive way that the most creative work was also the work that had the best recall and had the best effectiveness in the market. And I could lead you through the study in an hour. It's fascinating, but the important thing is that the creativity had a really significant positive influence on recall and market share. And ultimately, after the study was done, this is what we all realized. If a marketer is not demanding great creative work from their creative agency, they're wasting their money. And it's become more important in recent years, because in the old days, you had TV, newspaper, radio, maybe outdoor, and that was it. But now the consumer, or the person who is getting your message, who is going to receive all that great creative work, they have a smartphone, they have a tablet, they have YouTube, they have Facebook, they have Twitter, they have so many distractions. The only way that you can break through all of that noise is to do really extraordinary, amazing, creative work that gets noticed and that people talk about. So, one other study, just to show you that this was not the only one. The IPA, which is the industry professional organization in London, the Institution of Practitioners of Advertising out of London, did a big study with Donald Gunn of the Gunn Report, and they came to the same conclusion. This is perhaps too fine print, so I'll tell you the most important thing. At the very bottom is an amazing thing. The campaigns picking up 5 or more major creative awards were around 3 times as efficient as campaigns picking up 1 to 4 major awards. So what's the message here? There was a huge correlation between creative excellence as indicated by winning awards at the national or international level, and effectiveness of the work. So time and again, these studies are showing that trying to get creative excellence in the work you're doing is really important for your client's business and for your own. So this was the conclusion of the study. One of the authors of the study said that creativity is not the risky adventure that many in general management would appear to believe. It has become even safer over time. So in the last few years, it's become even more important to be doing new standard-setting creative work. So it's becoming essential in ensuring a brand's success in a wide range of metrics, from penetration to profit growth and for the long term. So I think we can all agree that it's important to be here today at the festival talking about creative excellence, because this matters. This matters to business. So let's talk a little bit about Russia. I wanted, before I came here, to look and see how you guys are doing globally. It's not very good news right now. I know you're a young advertising market, so as an optimist, I'm an American, we're optimistic, I can say there is a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of optimism. You have nowhere to go but up. Actually, I should pay my respects to the fact that I think BBDO in Cannes this year won a couple of Lions, and it's really great. But the point is, even though you're a young advertising industry, I think it's really only about 20 years old, it's time you started holding yourself to a higher standard. It's time you demanded more of yourself. It's time the clients demanded more of their creative agencies. And a lot of the biggest corporations in the world now go to their advertising agencies and demand that they win Lions in Cannes. That's a lot of pressure, but it shows you how the top marketers in the world are now thinking about the importance of creative excellence. There is hope. I have one more chart here. This is a league table that shows how many entries you're sending into Cannes as a country, and the ratio of how many times you're winning. Because some countries are very small and don't send much into Cannes, so maybe they cannot win that many Lions. So you'll find Russia there, 48. About less than 1 out of every 100 entries you send into Cannes is winning a Lion. So there's some room for improvement. Tunisia did really well this year. They had an amazing campaign from Mehmet Ogilvy, one of the agencies that's They're executive creative directors in our program. They had a crazy year, so don't think Tunisia's the best in the world. They were this year for their size because they had a great campaign. But like I said, you have a lot of room for improvement. The good news is you're ahead of Austria, and I was in Austria Monday night. The creative community there was really, really upset about the fact that less than 1 out of every 200